Well, good evening. How are
How
you?
are
Play College Podcast every Monday night. You have us to look forward to. We have Coach Kirk Broussard, Coach Chris Williams, and myself, Tracy Lynn. Well, hello, gentlemen. How are you?
Hello, Tracy. How are you?
How are you?
I'm good. Surviving. It's Monday. Yeah,
You got 4 more days.
I know, but I can't complain. The weather's really nice here. We've had like a full dose of spring, double digits. Sun is shining.
Wow, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. So I can't complain about that. It was a good weekend. Like I said, hey, it's Monday.
What's the vibe like in your area are people respecting social distance? Do they wear their mask? What's that like? Are they?
Yeah, well, see, we are waiting to hear if we are going back in lockdown. Some have gone back to where we were a few weeks ago because numbers keep rising. And now we are, rumors have it. Okay, rumor has it, which I think is an Adele song, that we are supposed to be going back in lockdown for another couple weeks. Because as I said, numbers keep going up. People are wearing their masks. We don't have an issue with wearing our masks. But people are fed up. They're bored. I don't know. Are they hanging out with other people? But they're saying that it's the new variant that's gone wild and rampant. I don't know. What about you? I mean, you guys are open where you are. You can do whatever you want. We're like prisoners here.
Again, when you turn on the news here, it also says that the numbers are rising and the hospitals are overflown. But, my wife works at the hospital, and she's every week she's like, "Oh yeah, we had one COVID patient this week." So,
oh, interesting. I mean, you've said that before too.
It's still the same way. It hadn't changed.
Yeah, and Miami has pretty much shut down during spring break. I mean, what is there, an 8:00 curfew right now?
Really?
Yeah, it was just released not long ago.
Yeah, they're trying to control the college kids that come spring break, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, spring break, time to let loose. And the Americans know how to do spring break. You guys have fun.
Yeah, we definitely do.
Not
a little COVID with all that fun too.
I miss those times.
Yeah, if we could go back in time.
Oh, if we could go back in time, I'd do it all the
time. Oh yeah.
Oh, I know. I have read the conversation on our chat every once in a while, and I think you guys forget that I'm there. Anyways, let's get to.
You're like one of the guys, Tracy.
I know. Hey, what can I say? It's always a good thing. Okay, we're gonna get right to it, gentlemen. I want to know your thoughts. Making headlines this week. We got a few things to cover. Russell Wilson. Yep. Our boy Russell. What is going on with him? What do you think? Where do you feel like he would be a good fit? The Saints, or would he be better with the Bears? Now, I'll go first just quickly. I feel like he'd be a great fit for the Saints.
Yeah.
I think that they have the tools. They are set up for success. They are ready. They just have one piece of the puzzle that they have to fill for that quarterback position, and we move them into there and the piece fits and we're all good. I mean, the Bears, there's some holes there. So that's my 2 cents on this conversation. Coach Kirk Broussard, what are your thoughts when it comes to Russell Wilson? Like what's going on? Do you think he's just going to stay in Seattle?
I agree with you, Tracy. I think the Saints are the most appealing team to him because I think he's attracted to that Sean Payton offense, that wide open offense. He's at that point in his prime to where he's kind of like in the middle towards the back end of his prime at 30 years old. So he wants to get another ring and he wants to put up some numbers. And we all know you can put up video game numbers in Sean Payton's offense. And so I think that's appealing to him, more appealing than Chicago, which seems to be the next best option. And so the question is, are the Saints going to give up what they would have to give up to even acquire him? They're going to have to give up a lot to acquire Russell Wilson. A lot of draft picks and who knows what else. But you're right. They have all the pieces in place to have a championship roster, and that quarterback can really put them over the top. And I'm sure they're aware of that. They don't want to give up their entire draft, but I know they're going to really want Russell Wilson. And it looks like he's been vocal lately saying that he has mutual interest in the Saints. So Whether that was through his agent or him, I'm not certain. But I like this. I like him to go to the Saints. I think that would be a brilliant fit.
I think he looked great in those colors, Coach Chris Williams.
Yeah, I think Coach is saying it all right there. I mean, he would definitely fit well with the Saints. I mean, offensive system wise, with his skill set, would fit well with Sean Payton. So I would, I really believe that this is just my opinion. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think he'd like, if they could get him some help in Seattle, I think you're probably looking at a guy who probably would be just fine staying where he is. But they got to get him. They got to go get him a big time receiver. They got to go get him, some more help offensively, and I think he might stay. But because it's tough. I mean, so many things would have to happen for him to end up in New Orleans or even end up in Chicago. So they'd have to lose a lot, give up a lot. So I don't know. I just think Seattle should focus on. I mean, they control the situation. They don't have to do anything. Seattle. Mm-hmm. So if I'm them, I just make sure I get the guy some help and let him see your commitment to trying to help him win another Super Bowl.
Yeah, hopefully we hear something soon as to where he's going. Mm-hmm. It would be good. I mean, he's kind of just one of those storylines where you just don't know. I mean, you're kind of on edge because you're unsure as to where he's going to go. But mm-hmm. I think it would be good for him. And again, I'm not the coach here. I don't know. I see things from a different perspective than the two of you gentlemen. I think it'd be good for him to switch it up a little bit. Every once in a while, it's good. See what else is out there. Sometimes it works, sometimes it fails. I get that, but Seattle's not giving him what he wants.
He's probably looking at the Saints' offensive line compared to what he's dealing with in Seattle. He was one of the most pressured, one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league this year. And the Saints have a really, really good offensive line. So it's appealing. The guy, he wants longevity in his career, and he doesn't want to continue with an organization that's not making the right steps to protect him and get him weapons within the system.
Yeah. Well, we're going to switch gears here. I want to know, coaches, we're going to get a little bit more personal. I want to get into more of what you have seen along your career and talk about the guys that just didn't make it to the big show, the ones that didn't get the big contracts, but yet they were like super talented as well. Because we all know that no matter what career you have or that you're in, there's always that one or two where even though they're talented, they don't get the contracts, right? Whomever would like to start, I'd like to know who the best players that you've ever coached, and I want you to tell me a little bit about them and like what's going on today with them.
You want me to start?
You first, go.
Well, I kind of wanted this topic in play because something happened recently that just really put this on my mind. Mm-hmm. In my generation, in that generation of class that really came out of high school around 1995, there was a lot of tremendous football players in that era. I mean, you got Randy Moss, you got Charles Woodson, you got Tom Brady. Mm-hmm. These are all Hall of Famers. You got Peter Warrick. You got just multiple guys from that generation that really stand out as being just phenomenal players. And there was one guy, and this is really what made me come up with this topic, is that there was one guy from Jacksonville, Florida. His name was Robert Pollard. And he was a close friend of mine. He ended up being a friend of mine. But out of high school, me being in Pensacola and him being in Jacksonville, I used to always hear about Robert Pollard, the number one safety in the nation. He was basically Sean Taylor before Sean Taylor. He was basically a combination of Derrick Brooks and Sean Taylor before Sean Taylor. Coach, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Robert Pollard, but he was the number one recruit in the nation. He was from Orange Park High School in Jacksonville, Florida. I mean, you're talking a legitimate 6'2", legitimate 220 pounds in high school, a legitimate 4.3 speed. Mm-hmm. And he ended up signing with Nebraska. He was an athlete because he played all over the field. And Nebraska signed him pretty much to be the next Lawrence Phillip. They were going to bring him in as a running back. He was going to replace Lawrence Phillip because he was the number one athlete in the nation out of high school. And so he had a lot of academic issues. He had some off the field issues. It seemed like he came from a upbringing that probably was not the most solid to really give him focus and all the things that he needed. But when I tell you, I've watched a lot of football. I think I've watched a lot of football, and I think I'm pretty good at evaluating it. And this kid, Robert Pollard, was the most gifted football player I have ever seen in my life. You're talking. I saw him recently at 42 years old, and you're talking a guy that he'll have a drink and he'll eat whatever pretty much, and his body was just always just shredded. Like he was a combination of like a football player and a Greek god. I mean, he's just gifted. Whatever he eats, it just falls off of him. And I know it's going to get your attention, Tracy. I'm talking about.
I'm sorry, I had to giggle.
I'm talking about if you could imagine a man that's 6'2" that eats anything he wants and still has this 2% body fat, 6-pack, and doesn't even work out. He was just blessed. And on the football field, you're talking about at this weight, this guy could run a 4.3 40. I mean, and so when he ended up going to Nebraska, it didn't work out really fast. He was back home really fast. He ended up going to Hines Community College. And Hines Community College was just loaded with kids from that class. That's probably the most talented junior college that I can remember in time. And I can go through the top 100 that year and pick out 5 guys that they had on Hines Community College at that time. Robert was so gifted that not only did he have world-class speed, but he couldn't work out with the defensive backs. He worked out with the offensive line, because when he worked out with the defensive backs, you'd have to take all the weight down and take all the weight back on just so he can get his reps, because he was that much stronger than everyone else. But with the offensive line, he could pretty much just work in with them without changing the weight. Man, he was gifted. And so I would never forget, I had heard about him in high school. I saw the news stuff that he did, #1 USA Today, everything, right? And I will never forget, in 2005, when I got the internship with the Lakeland Thunderbolts, Teddy Keaton, he was like, I need you to recruit players. I need you to bring players in here. And I started thinking about players, and I'm thinking, like, I wonder what Robert Pollard's doing. I know he hadn't made it to the league, and I started doing some research, and I saw he had did a stretch in prison. And I saw he had did he did some time. I'm not sure the details of it. And then I saw he had pretty much been out of football for like 7 years at this point when I found him. And so, I did some research. I got his number. I gave him a call, and I swear I never met this man a day in my life, but it seemed like we had been old friends for 20 years when I started talking to him. The next day, I got him to come down from Jacksonville, Florida to Lakeland. Mind you, this man hasn't touched a football in 7 years.
Wow.
He steps out the car, and he's still shredded. I mean, he is shredded. And he walks in to Teddy and all the coaches, and I had been telling all the coaches about Robert Pollard. And a lot of the coaches, they had always told me, I've been following recruiting. I'm a recruiting guru. I'm a recruiting buff. And I would think, like, if you're a recruiting guru, you've heard of Robert Pollard, and no one knew who he was. Now, mind you, on the Lakeland Thunderbolts, we had a lot of former NFL players. We had Gavan, we had Robert Branch, we had a lot of guys that had spent some time in the league with high pedigree as far as football. I kid you not, when Robert Pollard walked in the door and we put pads on him, the first day of practice, you could see it. Now, remember, he was shredded. He's still shredded, but he wasn't.
I remember.
He wasn't quite in the shape that he probably should have been, but still, you could see it that he was just far and above. I mean, if you were to say a guy that probably missed out on about $100 million that he could have made in the NFL, he was better than Derek Brooks, and Derek Brooks made $70 million in his career.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And when we got him on the field in Lakeland on that turf, I mean, we lined him up on, we played him at defensive end, and this guy's get off was unreal. I mean, on the quarterback every play. And so obviously 2 days later, we dressed him, took him down to Miami. And I mean, the rest is history, man. He was the best player we had on defense. He's better than Gavan. And we had Gavan on one side and him on the other side, and Dinky in the middle. You couldn't contend with it, man.
Wow.
And so as time went on, man, he was really good for us, and we had a great run, and we stayed in touch. And the thing that really brought this to my attention is I was just browsing. I went on his Facebook page just to look, and he passed away in July this year. And so I started looking for stories, and the news reports that it was a overdose on drugs, but I actually reached out and talked to his daughter, and she said that wasn't true, and she's not sure why the news reported it that way. But I just wanted to bring him into the spotlight and bring some attention because this kid was so gifted that he was even drafted for baseball. I mean, slapping home runs like Bo Jackson.
Wow.
Just a gifted player,
Right.
and just a guy that I feel like the world missed out on what he could do. So.
Wow. Well, condolences to his family. He's left quite the legacy. He's left quite the memory in your heart. I mean, such an incredible player, and how many incredible players that we just either don't know about or that just get forgotten because they didn't get that big contract.
Yeah.
And then again, mental health comes into play with this. And I mean, I was speaking with Rachel Barbeau, and that's what she does. She speaks to athletes. She goes to colleges. She speaks to athletes after their career, and the ones that just may have gotten themselves into trouble. And mental health, oh, I mean, that's a topic all in itself. And
it is.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that story, though.
It just takes one little thing in your childhood that can alter your path on a totally different direction, and you don't fulfill the potential that God touched this guy. I mean, athletically, body-wise, God touched him. He was touched by God. He was, and you read the obituary, and it even says that at 5 years old, everyone can see how special he was on a baseball field and a football field and a basketball court. He could do it all. And even myself, like as a kid, my father beat me and abused me badly. So my path could have been altered as well. It takes something small as a kid to alter your path, and you never fulfill your destiny of what you probably could have accomplished.
Yeah, one wrong decision, one wrong turn.
Yeah.
I mean, and it could just be an honest mistake.
Yep.
Right. But wow. Thank you very much for sharing that. Because there's a lot of stories of people that, and please reach out to us if you have a story. If you're watching this right now and you have a story of somebody who has touched your heart and who may not have made it to the big leagues, but they have a story that is that you want us to speak about. If you want to come on here and talk about them, please get a hold of us. And we would love to showcase them on our platform and however we can help people, because you know what, just because you don't got the big paycheck doesn't mean that you're not worth it, because we love everybody.
Yeah.
And like you said, he was blessed. He was super talented, and he's definitely left a legacy in like, as I said, a positive moment in your life to hold on to. So thank you for sharing that. Coach Williams, your career, you've been around athletes, the high school level, the college level as well, CFL, NFL. Is there any player that along the way that has just been maybe overlooked? Maybe they didn't get that contract, but they were super talented. Is there anyone that sticks out that you could tell us the story about?
I've got a guy. I'll again tell you the cliff notes. I hate to hear the end of that story with Pollard. That's
I know.
I thought we was gonna go. I thought it was gonna end up and be at least a guy who raises a great family, and I hate to hear that that's the way that it ended. But so definitely condolences. No, even to you, Coach, because I can tell that hits you. I can tell that touched you, by knowing who the kid was. So definitely feel for him and everybody who knew him. But my quick story, I just sent you guys a picture of a guy, and his name is Peter Fields. Okay, so Peter Fields, and this guy, and this is when I was coaching arena football, and so we recruited this guy from London, England. I don't know if you guys have seen the picture of him yet.
I don't know. Oops, I'm breaking things here.
Right.
Hold on, I'm not sure if people can see this off my camera.
Right. So Peter Fields was from London, England. He was 6'10" and 330 pounds. Right. So we found Peter, and so we ended up meeting, and we came up with a meeting spot. We met him in Alabama to work him out. And so we just felt like this guy would be a great football player. The body size fit. I mean, all of the dimensions fit. But he had never played football before. He had been in London all of his life, and he was a rowing champion. So he was like, he's a guy that just had done rowing all of his life. Offensive lineman, comes over, plays with us, and at 6'10", 325, I mean, he is straight mauling people. And we got him coached up as much as we could. Now, keep in mind, he's never played college football before. So, there's a lot of skills and things and just hours. I used to tell my buddies the hours that we spend meeting with coaches in college just increases your level of knowledge of football. He had never had those hours, So even though he's getting hours with us, he still missed 4,000 hours, that he could have had in a college system. So anyway, so long story short, we were able to, everybody in the NFL was at least intrigued by Peter. When we sent stuff out, send this film, the guy's 6'10", legitimately 6'10", legitimately he's never, he's an English kid, which is why everybody's missed him. So everybody was calling. I mean, all the NFL teams. I got a call from every NFL team about Peter Fields, right? And so everybody worked him out. I mean, well, not everybody, but everybody called, and then 11 teams worked him out. And he went and worked out for the Packers, the Falcons, the Cowboys, and he did all. Everybody wanted to at least see, but we just couldn't get him over the hump because he was just one step behind all of the NFL offensive linemen who had the hours of college coaching, who had the high school background, and who had gone through the scouting process. But that kid was athletically the most impressive athlete I've ever seen. Footwork, a guy that big could run like a running back. He was as strong as anybody I've ever seen. But the NFL just, and even to this day, and I still keep in touch with him because he's a coach now. He's trying to bring American football to England. So he started up this little league and he's starting to train some kids there. But he, in my opinion, if that guy athletically had ever come through the American college football system, then he would have been one of the best, absolute best offensive linemen that we've ever seen. I mean, just could jump through the roof, could play basketball. He ran 4.9 in the 40. It was, he's pumping 225 40 times. I mean, it was just amazing that the athlete that he was. But again, just didn't have the pedigree, and we just couldn't get him over the hump. But they all for that moment, knew who Peter Fields was. So, and to wrap the story up, I told him that he should be proud of himself, even though that story doesn't end up as an NFL Hall of Fame story. He should be proud of himself for what he was able to do as a guy who never played the sport of football. That's something that he should always be able to tell his kids, his grandkids, even the people in England who he's trying to teach football to now. I mean, he did something that was amazing. Nobody will ever know, but he did something that was absolutely amazing. He took NFL scouts by storm and just couldn't get over the hump. So that's my story. Do you remember that guy?
I do remember.
Mm-hmm.
I remember him well. Gary used to talk about him a lot. And I just wonder if he had been given a crash course, like 18 hours a day, offensive lineman school, 18 hours a day. Just, Kobe Bryant talked about the amount of hours you put into work is how you surpass or catch up to people as far as performing them. So I wonder if he had just eat, sleep, and breathe offensive line school, would that have caught him up to at least to where he could have got on a practice squad?
Yeah, it was. The answer to that is probably no. Unfortunately, the answer to that is no. Just because, I mean, you got to think. Imagine if you and I had never seen or even discussed football, right? And we don't discuss it until we're 24 years old. I mean, there's just no making up of that. Even some of the basic things of just football awareness. I mean, it was just, and he only had like a window of 2 years to try to make this happen. Because by the time he's 26, nobody's going to take you at that age. But he was just such a empty sponge. It was just hard. I mean, we got him to where he could he could perform and he could play at our level, but just little simple things about the game. He just didn't have that natural feel for it. I mean, we're learning this stuff when we're playing in the streets as kids, right? So he just didn't have that. But like I said, as an athlete, I've never seen one better at his offensive lineman.
Wow. And as we said, there's so many untold stories, stories that don't have an ending, and then stories that do have an ending, and they're meant to teach along the way. And I think that that's going to be something that we will follow. And as I mentioned, if you know somebody who has a story and you want to showcase it, give us a call, send us a direct message on all our social platforms. We have the YouTube channel starting up. We have the Instagram page, because That's what it's all about. It's about giving people a platform to showcase themselves. And it's always the untold stories, all the ones that people either been forgotten about along the way, or the ones that just didn't even have a chance to have a voice in the sport, no matter if it was football or any sport. I mean, there's always someone, and as coaches, the both of you have come across so many athletes, so much potential, no matter at what level, high school, college. We talked about CFL, we talked about NFL. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard. So it's a good platform. We're gonna talk about this next hot topic right now.
Okay. What you got?
I've been trying to pick my words in wisely, appropriately.
Okay.
But I feel like I don't know enough about it. I'm just reading the headlines because it's been a short amount of time that allegations have come out about Texans Deshaun Watson. He's now facing 13, maybe it's gone up in the last couple of hours, I don't know, sexual misconduct lawsuits under investigation by the NFL. So, I don't know how to take this. Part of me is like, oh my God, what a douche. Like, you instantly want to react like, how could he think that he can get away with this? Then on the flip side, I'm like, I hope that these women aren't lying. I hope they're not looking for their moment of fame because maybe they were rejected. And I am not trying to desensitize this topic whatsoever, but I can debate both sides of it. Okay.
Tell us how you really feel about that.
I would hope. And here's the thing, women who are quick to respond to stuff like this, again, I don't need hate mail. I don't need text messages or comments or anything. I said I'm not well educated on this. I'm just giving you my response. The ones that don't speak are the ones that have the stories. I'm not saying that the ones that speak don't have a story. And I honestly, kudos to you. I high five you for your bravery. I high five you for standing up and sticking up for what's right and having a voice. But it's the ones that just hop on to that movement, like the trend word, that's where I have the issue. So we need to, we will never know, was this something that he really is at fault at? Or is it a female who has engaged in something and then got rejected and is now upset because there was no follow through, that you turned it into, hey, he sexually there's been sexual misconduct. I don't know. What are your thoughts? I'm trying to word it properly, but I don't know, because it seems like, is he just the target of the month? I know you guys are like, I know the both of you right now, I looking at your faces, you're like, you feel like, I get it. It's a tough subject to speak about because you're afraid if you say something wrong, and as a male, you will be punished for saying that.
Absolutely.
Right? And absolutely. I feel like I am trying to defend you, defend myself, but be that person in the middle. Like 13 sexual misconduct allegations, inappropriate touch or talk, this, that, private messages. You don't just randomly pick up the phone and start sexually texting someone. Okay.
Well, I'll just say first that that's an interesting perspective coming from a woman. I'll definitely say that. But at the same time, I respect where you're coming from, because you know how this works. I mean, you have walked down the street and heard people whistle, and you've gone into locker rooms and heard guys, say things that would be inappropriate. So you would know, and women are your friends, right? So you would know things.
And there's true stories that are out there. And as I said, I high five every female who has gone through something and voiced their stories.
Yeah, so I feel you. And I don't know what happened, and I'm definitely not going to put Deshaun Watson on I'm not going to persecute the guy, because I don't know, and we don't know what's happened. I think sometimes people jump to jump to their conclusion either way, maybe too fast. But I do hear what you're saying. I mean, that's an insight. That's kind of like locker room talk, from a woman's standpoint. I mean, what you're giving us, and that does happen. So you're saying that happens. You've been around people, so you know how that stuff works. So I respect you saying that. I think that's a limb to walk out on, but it's a true limb because that's the life that. I mean, I can only imagine what it's like as a woman to even just dress in a classy way and then walk down the street and somebody's making whistle calls. I can only imagine what that's like. So I think women really know what this is about, but at the same time I hope the kid is innocent, but it could go either way, right?
Mm-hmm. Because one of them is talking about a massage that he wanted more than a massage.
Mm-hmm.
And the woman started crying, and before she was able to get Watson to leave, he allegedly said,
mm-hmm.
I know you have a career and reputation, and I know you would hate for someone to mess with yours, just like I don't want anyone messing with mine.
Mm-hmm.
So she took it as a threat.
Wow.
So
we don't know people, that's for sure. That's one thing I can say. We don't, we never know who these guys really are, but we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah, like I know it's just like I said, I'm not saying that the women are lying. I'm just saying that it seems like when one person comes out and actually tells their story and they feel like they're brave enough, they get to that moment that all these clingers come out. Oh yeah, me too.
Right.
But there's other parts of the story. Money. You're right. Show me the money. Because he'll have nothing else to do but to say, okay, you know what? Let's just pay them off. Let's make the story go away. But then there's that flip side. They never show if the other party, no matter if it's male or female, okay? I'm going to play both sides of this. Because women have been accused of things as well. They never show the other party's lead up to that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a hot guy that has a six-pack and beautiful pecs and he gets whistled at, it's never a big deal. That's not a big deal. That's not sexual harassment. That's acceptable. Why is that acceptable?
Yes, you're right. You're right. And women can be just as bad as men.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. When a female says it, it doesn't mean anything. But when a male says it, depending on maybe how we're feeling that day, I don't know how you we will. Some women like it, hence why they dress and post things a certain way. They enjoy the content of the comments. Then there's others that just don't appreciate it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you make yourself public, you have to expect both sides of that.
If you dress a certain way, you expect attention. But sometimes the attention if you dress a certain way, you're not going to get positive attention. You're going to get the type of attention that a classy lady wouldn't really want. She doesn't really want that type of attention.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to be technical with it, in my opinion, the women that are covered, that conceal, to me, they're more valuable. It goes back to the old saying that a diamond is covered by the earth's surface. It's covered in a mine. You got a mine to get to diamonds. You got a mine to get the gold. It's covered. It's valuable. It's covered.
You chip away at a lot of layers.
If a woman continues to be covered, I feel like she maintains a certain level of value. But if you just show me everything on the street, you're not going to get the respect that a woman that's covered would get. And so,
remember the sideline reporter? This is going back a couple of years. She was wearing the tight jeans, the low hipster jeans with a low cut shirt, very provocative, very exposed. She looked amazing in it. She had a fantastic body and she looked great, but she was getting catcalls from being on the sidelines for wearing that. So then there comes what you're saying. You dress for how you want to be treated. You dress professional. To show up on a sideline with a bunch of men wearing something like that.
What do you expect? What do you expect? I'm not going to say, I don't want to say you're asking for it, but you actually are asking for it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And when it comes to Deshaun, I feel like maybe there's probably some solid evidence there. Maybe a few people that actually have a true story. But it's sad that you have the trolls that hop on board and it degrades what the actual situation is.
Yeah.
There's probably some truth in there to where some things were borderline where he may have been inappropriate. And
Mhm.
you're right. Once that comes out, then you have a bunch of other bandwagon. Oh, maybe I can get paid off of this too.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
if you go back into Sean Watson's history from when he was a child, it's very public that he's really always kind of been like a class act type of, I'm not going to say Tebow type of
Mhm.
model citizen, but there's a lot of people in his life that have always raved about what a quality young man that he is. That doesn't make him exempt from making a cat call or for asking for a little extra on a massage. I mean, at the end of the day, where he's human, so that could have happened. But you're right. There's probably 95% of this are trolls that are jumping in it for $1.
Yeah, and wouldn't you say, like, this supposedly had just happened recently,
Mhm.
if I read this correctly. So no matter if it's come out, I would say in the last few years, because we had the whole Me Too movement, which was probably about 4 years ago, give or take. Are athletes not just getting the point? Like, there's got to be a light bulb moment that's saying, I better be smart about what I say and what I do, because you have seen it repeatedly over decades of what happens when, no matter if you're an athlete or a professional or just a public figure, actor, whatever, you treat somebody bad, you're getting slammed with a lawsuit. Like,
You're right.
you're
And
this day and age. Come on.
that's why I've always said, if you're a man that has those type of resources in the off season, why not hop on a plane and go to a country where that type of behavior is more acceptable and people aren't as sensitive?
Yeah.
Why do that here where it's so hypersensitive and they know you're a celebrity. So if you do anything that's borderline, they're
Mhm.
gonna blow it out of proportion. Get on a plane and go to another country where you maybe can do whatever you want to do. And
I'd like
why
to know
not?
if there's video of anything. And again, I haven't really read everything. I've read all the full stories because it's just been the last few hours that more allegations have come out, more lawsuits. I wonder if there's actual video. I mean, come on, we live in a day and age where everything is recorded, everything is screenshotted,
Mhm.
and they can go back on your phone, even though you have deleted stuff. I believe they can go back on your phone up to like 7 years worth of content.
Mhm.
It's like in the cloud. So be careful what pictures you're snapping out there and who you're talking to. So interesting headline that we'll follow. Let's go on to the next one. LeBron James injury. Lakers stars out indefinitely with a high ankle sprain. What is this going to mean for the Lakers, Coach Broussard?
I'll let Chris take it. Just
Okay,
You
I can
know,
never get it right. Who do you throw this out to?
I know, right? I'm a big LeBron fan, but he
Mhm.
obviously they're going to be hurt by him not being there. So this is a pretty quick answer for me. I mean, his high ankle sprains aren't easy to get over either, so he's going to have to sit and do his best to rest it. But I thought he did a good. He's got a high pain threshold because he was. He tried to push through that thing, and it is not easy to push through a high ankle sprain. He attempted to stay in the game, until he just realized that he couldn't do it. But yeah, it's obvious the team will be hurt by him not being there, and for however long he's not there, they won't be the same team. So let's hope he can truly rest that. Those things are normally 5-6 week type injuries, so he's just got to get out and rest. But the team will be different, no doubt about it.
Yeah, no LeBron, no AD. They better hope they don't go on a losing skid and make their playoff situation more difficult for them. Their seeding, I guess you could say. But they're going to hurt. I agree with Coach. And it's just one of those things to where, LeBron's 36 now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you don't quite heal as fast as you would when you were a little bit younger. And with today's medicine and today's physical therapy, he could be back in 6 weeks, but they're definitely going to hurt a lot. And it's going to kind of put him behind. And then even when he comes back, you kind of got to reestablish that chemistry, and it doesn't really come right back. And also with AD being out as well.
Yeah, because they've learned to play without you.
Yeah.
And it's the worst when they're actually doing good and they realize we don't need you right now.
Yeah.
Right. We've seen that happen a few times, but yes, he's out. So we'll see how the Lakers are going to do. Let's move along. Kirk, Coach Broussard, you mentioned about this Deion Sanders meme over the weekend.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen it yet. I'm trying to look it up right now. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I just noticed. So Jackson State played Alabama State this past weekend, and the game came down to the wire. Jackson State's quarterback threw an interception at the end, which sealed the game for Alabama State. And Alabama State's decided to poke a little fun at Deion by posting a photo of him from the 80s with gold chains and a Jerry curl, And Alabama State's head coach had a great point because he got a lot of the backlash for it. He said, "I don't control what happens up in the control tower. I coached the game, and I don't have any control over who posted that meme." But Deion had some choice words about it. He thought it was tasteless, and it's a little bit of his own medicine because he's been kind of flashy a little bit, and he was flashy as a player. He kind of rubbed it in when he made big plays as a player, and I think they were just having a little fun with him, but he didn't take it too kindly.
No matter what we say, everyone will turn it into a meme. And I'm going to tell you, sometimes that's what gets me through my day when I look at memes or you try to create one.
Yeah.
I think, it's part of the game. It's part of no matter what game you play, you want to play at a high level. They're going to take any moment. Look at the Michael Jordan moment where he was crying. And he will never outlive that because it's a meme everywhere. How are you feeling today? Oh my God.
Yeah.
And we can all relate to that moment. And so let's talk about NCAA tournament. Let me ask you, gentlemen, what are your predictions? I've only watched a little bit here and there. It's been a little bit of a busy couple days, but I've been hearing updates from my son. He's been giving me updates because he's been watching it and telling me what's going on. Wow. What's going on? What are your predictions? Because, champion predictions. We always love it when we can put the two of you together, and we like to see who's going to go who.
It's tough to predict a winner because you don't have a lot of the traditional blue bloods that are in. Kentucky didn't make it. I don't think North Carolina didn't make it. A lot of these traditional blue blood, I don't think Duke made it. And a lot of traditional blue bloods that we're used to seeing in the Final Four, we don't have this year. And I don't know, college basketball is one of those things to where I think they need to open the game up a little bit more to get the attention of the fans again, because no one wants to watch a game that the final score is 45-54. They want to see more scoring. And college basketball, you look at a halftime score and they got 25 points. Well, no one wants to see that. So I think they need to kind of make some changes with the rules to maybe get more like the NBA is doing with high scoring games. But Alabama's on a run, a rare run, Alabama in basketball. I think Alabama could be a Final Four team, but to predict the winner of this entire tournament is really tough to do. Oregon looked pretty good. I think Oregon could potentially be a Final Four team. Alabama, and I'm not sure who's going to come out on top of the whole tournament, but I know it's kind of a different feel this year because they're playing in a bubble, kind of like the NBA bubble. So that's been a bit of an adjustment. And so I've peeked at it here and there to catch some of the games, but as now we're in the Sweet 16, I'm going to be tuning into it more to kind of watch.
Coach Williams, predictions so far, or not sure?
The only thing I'll say is I like Alabama, of course. I've always been an Alabama fan, sports fan. So I thought nobody could fix that program, to be honest with you. Alabama's had some really good basketball coaches go through there, between Avery Johnson and then there's Mark Gottfried's been through there. And, I think Anthony Tom, all these guys have been through there.
Anthony Grant.
And I didn't think anybody could fix this program. So this guy, Nate Oates, is really turning this thing around. Has got this team playing as a solid, really, truly NCAA tournament level team. I mean, it's unbelievable. So people from Alabama are just blown away by what Nate Oates has been able to do with that program. So I'd have to say they have a chance. But if I had to put money on it, I'd go back to Gonzaga. And I really like Florida State. I like Florida State's, their approach to things. And they're kind of a sleeper in there, I think. So those three teams I like: Gonzaga, Alabama, Florida State. And I'd like to think that maybe as an outside shot, you might see a team like an Oregon, like Kirk is saying.
Okay. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but there's been a lot of controversy versus when it comes to men and women during the NCAA
Hmm.
tournament. It's known as March Madness, but a lot of people are calling it spring sexism. Men are being treated differently than the women. There was a female athlete that posted a picture of the female weight room, and it was just a rack with some weights on it.
Yeah.
Then they went and showed the men's weight room, which was like decked out, looked like a full gym. And then they did one about the food and comparing the food. They got some yucky food, which I don't even know what it was, but you could see them eating it and their faces. And then they go look over at the men's buffet. What's going on? Is like, how are they not prepared? How are they not, why isn't their bubble being treated the same?
I think they're making it out to be a sexist type thing,
But
but
she's not making it out. She's showing proof. There's actual video.
I get that. But let me ask you a question.
NCAA didn't
if
even
you-
have a statement prepared for this.
Okay, let's ask this question. If you walk into the University of Alabama football locker room, right, and you do a tour, and then you go and walk in Kennesaw State's locker room, is it the same? Or is the school that makes the most money, do they have better amenities and better treatment? So if
So are you
men's
saying the men are better than women?
no,
at basketball?
I'm saying that the men's basketball team generates more revenue than the women's basketball team.
But they're playing the
So-
same game.
But it's about generating revenue. If my sport generates more revenue than your sport, should we have the same amenities?
Well, I think you're playing the same sport. I get what you're saying. One may bring in more money than the other, but how can the other possibly bring in any more money if they're not invested in?
It's just technically the same sport, but it's a different entity of that sport. If you go on the website, you have men's basketball and you have women's basketball. It's two different tabs you can select. If
Yeah, two different
my
change rooms, two different locker rooms. I get it.
if my sport generates more revenue than your sport, then why should we have the same locker room?
Okay, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're saying it's men versus women. They're athletes. They're
It's just
professional athletes that need to keep their body going. They need to fuel the same way. A female athlete needs to fuel just as much as a male athlete.
I agree with her on the food.
So
I think-
are you saying like, okay, chicks, you don't really bring in much money, so here's a bag of crap that we're going to feed you tonight. And then, you know what, guys? You do so well and you bring in so much money, we're going to have a buffet of whatever you want because
I
you're
agree.
men.
I agree the food should be standard, but their
And a
locker
weight
room,
room should be as well.
that shouldn't be standard.
Why can't they share the same weight room?
My sport generates more money than your sport. Why should I have more amenities than your sport? It's just that's the way life is. If you go out and you work hard and you become a doctor, you're going to generate more money than a janitor. Is that
No, you should be comparing it to a female doctor and a male doctor. Of course, a doctor is going to make more money than a janitor.
Well, it doesn't apply in that sense because a female doctor is going to make just as much money as a man doctor. It's about how much money you can generate. It doesn't matter if you're an
Doctor and a
alien.
janitor aren't even in the same pay scale because they're two different things. They're two different professional careers. Okay, Chris. James.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
So I'm going to agree that it's spring sexism.
What I'm saying is, it doesn't matter if you're a man, a woman, or you're from Mars. If the person from Mars generates more money in their sport, then they should get better amenities. The food should be the same. I agree with you. The food should be the same, but you should have a better weight room than.
It should be the same weight room. It should be a unisex weight room if they don't want to do two. Have different times that each person can use it. This is what we call dead air on radio.
That's above my pay grade.
This is tough. This is a tough subject. I'm not gonna get too deep into this one, but I'm just gonna say this: if somebody's complaining, they probably got something to complain about. So we probably should take at least a look as to what's being complained about. And it's no different than me walking down the streets as a black man in this country. I got some damn complaints, right? So and when you really look at it, if you stop and think, and I want all of my white counterparts to stop and think about what the hell I'm complaining about, if they really are compassionate, they'll hear that I've got that. Hey, the guy's got a point, right? So same thing here. I mean, if these girls are complaining about something they see an injustice or an inequality happening, then we got to take a look at it. I mean, it just is what it is. There's billions of dollars. You know, we talked about it last week. There's billions of dollars floating around through the NCAA. These big schools aren't hurting, especially the March Madness and the NCAA nobody's going broke if you make sure the girls are taken care of during this tournament. So they got something to complain
Williams,
about.
you have a daughter, correct?
Of course, yeah, I do.
And she plays sports. She's very athletic. She's very talented.
Right, that's
How
right.
would you feel if your daughter was being treated differently like this and you saw evidence? This wasn't just I got cold food. Saw evidence. And as a coach,
I would be all over and I would be on her side. And part of the reason that I think the way I think is because I have a daughter. So I've had to look at some things differently in life. No different than the conversation earlier about the clothes that a girl wears. I wasn't going to bring it up, but you know, my daughter, she goes out for her jogs. You know, she's trying to get in shape for her track season. She's got on her athletic tights, right? Does that mean that she asks and she goes out 5 times, she comes back and tells me about the weirdo who said something from his car? Does that mean she asked for that because she just went out and wanted to get a workout in? So I mean, sometimes you got to really look and stop and really see, you know, where people are coming from. And you know, I mean, there's no doubt about this. These girls are probably right. They have a point. You know, yeah, you could argue back a point because I do see the money thing. I get some of that a little bit, but I don't get the NCAA tournament. You know, who they have plenty of money to make sure that everybody's treated equally in this tournament. Now, if they're just talking about at my school, you know, my weight room's different than the football. I get it on the campus of the school, but I don't get that for an NCAA sponsored tournament.
And somebody at the NCAA high level had to have said, you know what? This will cause controversy.
Yeah.
This is going to be an issue. No matter if one brings in more money than the other, this will cause an issue. But they didn't, because they didn't even have a response to it. They didn't even know what to say. I mean, I wish I had her name up on here, but you can follow it. It's all over social right now. And she's just doing some video. And the video was it wasn't even meant to be like, hey, the guys are getting better treatment. It was just a TikTok that she did. And people were like, wait, that's your weight room and look at theirs?
Yeah.
Okay. Is the tennis team complaining that is the tennis team at the University of Alabama? Do they have the right to complain that the football team has a better locker room?
Absolutely not.
Which one generates?
I'm not saying they're two different sports. This is the same sport. They're putting their body through their bodies, no matter male or female, are putting themselves at they're doing the same sport.
Okay, here's the reason.
But regardless, they need to fuel. They need to keep their body moving. And that was very degrading to have just a little tiny thing of weights and be like, here's your weight room, ladies. And then the guys are just like, hey, how's it going? There's an issue here. Huge issue, but not one that we are going to come to an agreement at tonight.
Women's basketball is not the same sport as men's basketball. It's a different sport. It's the same sport technically, but it's a different entity of the sport.
Are they running up and down a court? Are they putting that ball in a net?
Is the
court the same size?
I'm going to repeat. It technically is the same sport, but it's a different entity of the sport. So a female basketball, I agree with Coach. At the NCAA tournament, they should all have everything across the board the same. But at your school, if men's basketball makes quadruple the amount of money that women's basketball makes, why would women's basketball have a equal weight room?
Well, we're talking about the NCAA and how they just
that's wrong. Yeah, the women should have
completely wrong. And somebody at some level should have taken a step back to say, "Hey, guess what? This doesn't look right." It looks like we've lost Coach Williams, so I guess we're kind of at the end of our time. But Coach Broussard, I appreciate your comments. I appreciate you, and thanks. It was a good show.
Yeah, I appreciate the variety of opinions, and I don't want no one to think I'm a sexist or anything like that.
No.
I feel like the NCAA got it wrong.
Mhm.
Anyone involved in that tournament should have got equal everything, period.
Yeah.
And I'm glad she
And
posted that
listen,
video.
you
because
heard
that's
everything I said tonight. I'm probably going to get, comments too. But again, people need to open their ears, open their eyes, and look at stuff that has happened in the past in other stories. So we all want to protect everybody. Everybody has a voice. And everyone, don't forget to, there we go. We are he's back on.
My connection.
We were just going to wrap this up, but if, as we said earlier in the show, if you know somebody that has a story and you want to share it with us or have them come on or showcase them, we want to hear about it. We want to put it on our social. We want to discuss them. We want to say, hey, it's okay. We all sometimes just, we have that story, and just because we didn't sign the contract doesn't mean that we're not good enough. And we also want you to get involved on our social, because there's a lot of debates that happen off air. Yes, sometimes we will do kind of put each other back into put things back into perspective. If somebody posts something, we always like to make sure you guys know that we're watching. And of course, our YouTube channel will be coming soon, which is very good things. We're on all social platforms. We are on all podcast platforms. And hey, it just gets better here at the Play Callers Pod. Right. Gentlemen, I hope you have a great night. As always, it was very entertaining. I appreciate your feedback. I appreciate your support. And can't wait till next week.
And I just would like to say, if anyone's watching or anyone watches this broadcast, please go to the Facebook page for the Play Callers and participate in the poll that's on our story, which is asking, what guests would you like to see us interview in the future? Because we want to bring on more guests, and we want to bring on people that you guys want to see.
Yeah, the topics and the guests. We want to know what you guys want to hear. Okay, gentlemen, I guess that is it. We are out. Interesting night, but don't worry, I won't hold any of you guys to what you said. I may have to watch it back again, though. Bye, guys. Have a good night. We'll see you next week.
See you.